I work at an old, disused quarry. It's quiet here now, mostly. But if you ever hear a strange metallic scraping sound, like stone on stone, coming from the depths of the earth, do not investigate. Just run. There is some ancient, unsettling presence buried deep within these rocks. I know because I have heard it, seen it, and nearly been claimed by it myself. A lot of curious hikers and urban explorers come around here, drawn by the eerie silence and forgotten history. Some of them vanish without a trace. A few return, but they are changed, with stories that defy belief. Most simply never come back. I am one of the lucky ones, I suppose. I went missing for 2 days, and I am fortunate to still be alive and sane. So if you are ever exploring forgotten places, and you hear that awful grinding sound, trust me, run. Do not look back. People often romanticize working at a place like this. They imagine peaceful solitude, ancient geological wonders, and a connection to history. In reality, it is mostly hauling heavy equipment, patching up crumbling fences, and keeping an eye on unstable rock faces. And always, always, that underlying sense of something vast and indifferent lurking beneath the surface. My companion through it all is a grizzled, 3-legged German shepherd named Rusty, a rescue I found 5 years ago. He is my shadow, my alarm system, and my only connection to sanity out here. He has seen more than he lets on, I think. Today was particularly bad. I was perched precariously on a ledge, 200 feet up, trying to dislodge a section of loose rock that threatened the lower access road. The wind howled through the canyons of the quarry, carrying with it a fine dust that stung my eyes. Every gust made the portable hoist I was using sway alarmingly, and the whole structure groaned and shivered. Below, Rusty was pacing, his low growl barely audible over the wind, his ears twitching. To make matters worse, I had left my best climbing gloves on the equipment truck, and my hands were raw and bleeding from the abrasive stone. On the positive side, a heavy rockfall like this meant I would not have to worry about anyone trying to sneak in through that section of the perimeter for a while. On the other hand, there was going to be a monumental mess to clean up. The wind and dust continued for the rest of the day, and long into the night. When I woke the next morning, the air was still, and a pale sun was just beginning to peek over the jagged peaks of the quarry walls. I had to coax Rusty out from under the equipment shed with a liberal offering of his favorite beef jerky. Rusty, despite his intimidating size and bark, is terrified of sudden loud noises. Old quarry blasts, I suppose. He is a working dog, always alert, but he gets unusually anxious when the air is heavy and still, like before a storm, or worse, before something moves unseen through the quarry. He likes to be close to his person, and he is a surprisingly agile escape artist. Despite his missing leg, he can squeeze through gaps you would not believe and scale surprisingly steep inclines. Luckily, my job means he can always be with me. He has proven himself to be an invaluable part of the team. Once, when I was inspecting an abandoned shaft, I heard frantic shouts from above. 2 panicked parents had appeared at the edge of the pit. They said they were exploring the upper trails with their 9-year-old daughter Lily, but when they turned around, she was gone. They had called and searched for over an hour before looking for help. I had them take me back to where they had last seen her, near an old, crumbling dynamite shack, and Rusty, as always, saved the day. Dogs can hear much better than we can, so I blew the emergency whistle I had on my vest and had us all stay completely quiet. Rusty must have heard her faint cries, 'cause he took off down a steep, overgrown path I did not even know existed. After a 30-minute scramble through thorny scrub and loose shale, we found her, exhausted and pretty scratched up, but otherwise okay. I walked with the family back to their car. While we were walking, I asked Lily what had happened. She said she was following her parents on the path, looking for interesting crystals for her collection. Suddenly, she saw something shimmering beyond a cluster of dead trees, so she stopped to get a better look. About 10 feet off the trail, she saw a large iridescent beetle, unlike anything she had ever seen, just sitting there, staring right at her. Lily, being a curious child, took a few steps off the trail to get closer. The huge beetle shimmered, then seemed to hop a little further into the dense undergrowth. Lily had almost caught up to it when it vanished. In its place was a small, smooth, obsidian-like stone. Lily said the stone had strange, swirling patterns on it. She picked it up, put it in her pocket, and turned around to head back towards her parents. But instead of seeing the trail, she saw a towering, perfectly smooth rock wall, going at least 50 feet straight up. She said no matter which way she went, she could not find her way back to the trail. When Lily started getting tired, she remembered to stay in one place to make it easier for people to find her. So she sat down under a large gnarled tree and called for help, but no one came. And here is the really strange part. The girl had been lost for maybe 2 hours at most, but Lily said she was gone for 2 days. She said she saw the sun go down twice, and she never heard anyone calling for her. But every few hours, she would hear something enormous shuffling through the quarry. Lily could not see what it was. She said she was too scared to look. She just hid behind the tree and tried to stay quiet. The only thing she saw was Rusty running towards her right before she got rescued. I asked Lily if I could see the stone she found, but after searching through her pockets, she could not find it. She said she must have lost it over there. The way Lily said over there made it sound like it was another dimension. We got back to their car. They thanked Rusty and me again and headed home, but the parents must have called the local news because the following week, a reporter came out to take some photos of Rusty. They put his picture under the headline, "Hero Dog Finds Missing Girl." He has been a bit of a local celebrity after that. Sometimes a hiker will recognize him, and whenever we are in town, he always gets a free hot dog. And Rusty seems to really enjoy the quarry ranger lifestyle, but he is afraid of loud noises, so I could not really blame him for hiding under the shed during last night's windstorm. I spent the morning after the storm picking up smaller rocks and branches from around the base of the main quarry office. Once that was clear, Rusty and I checked the access trails. There is really only one main access road this far out into the quarry. It enters the main work area from the west, then keeps going further east, winding around the deeper pits. There are a few small offshoots and overlooks into the lower quarry, but they are all dead ends. I found a few small rockfalls blocking the path, and those were easy enough to clear by hand. As I tossed those aside, Rusty helped by dragging away some of the smaller debris. A few miles from the main office, a huge section of shale had collapsed right across the main access road. That was a bigger job, involving heavy machinery. So Rusty and I took a break for an early lunch. I was sitting on a rusted old piece of equipment, finishing up a sandwich, when I noticed Rusty was acting strange. Ordinarily, when I am eating something shareable, Rusty will be staring at me with the intensity of 1,000 white-hot suns, but he was looking off the road, towards an untouched section of the quarry. His head was tilted to the side, and he was whining softly. "What is it, boy?" I stopped chewing to listen, but I did not hear anything. Rusty and I are always out in the quarry. He completely ignores the stray desert rabbits and does not even give the occasional mountain goats a second look, so I thought maybe a coyote was passing by. Rusty took a few more steps towards the untouched area. When I walked up next to him, I could see he was trembling. Following his gaze, I noticed an overgrown path, an offshoot from the main road that I had never seen before. Maybe that large rockfall had blocked it from view. Curious now, I carefully headed down what remained of the old path. I knew it could not go very far, because unless I had gotten completely turned around, the path should end at a sheer cliff face overlooking the deepest part of the quarry. 10 minutes later, I came to the end of the path. Blocking the way were 2 huge, perfectly cut stone blocks, with a 10-foot opening between them. The opening was partially blocked by a massive pile of crumbled rock and ancient rusted machinery. There was no way around. On the other side of the stone blocks, there was a steep drop-off into what looked like an unfathomable abyss. "What in the world is this?" I mumbled. The whole thing looked strange. It looked old, sharp, and dangerous. For some reason, it reminded me of those unsettling old photographs of abandoned mines. After standing there for a few minutes, I decided to head back to the main road, to get back to work and start clearing that rockfall. I had made up my mind to ask Old Man Tiber, the long-retired quarry foreman, if he knew anything about the old hidden path and the massive blockade of piled-up rock. Tiber had been working in this quarry for at least 40 years. He knew this place inside and out. If anyone would know about it, he would. I started walking back when I realized Rusty was not with me. I turned to see him, about 80 feet back, standing perfectly still, staring at the collapsed rockfall. His head was tilted, like he was listening to something in the distance. All of a sudden, he took a running leap up onto the rubble and started climbing. "No, no, Rusty, come," I yelled, running back towards him. But he did not stop. By the time I got back to the collapse, his tail was just disappearing over the top. I ran around the side of one of the stone blocks, still calling for him, but I could not see anything, only a sheer drop. I heard Rusty bark from the other side, but when he barked again, a few minutes later, he sounded much farther away. I ran back to the main road to grab my pack with my supplies. I quickly hid the heavy machinery keys and tools off-trail, in case any hikers or children came through. I rushed back to the collapse and started climbing. It was only about 15 feet high, but it was dangerous. A couple of times, loose rocks broke under my weight, and I almost fell through. This is a great way to break a leg, I thought to myself. Reaching the top, I looked down to find a small path at the bottom of the rubble. It looked like it was carved right out of the side of the quarry wall. On the left side of the little 2-foot path was the rocky face of the mountain. On the right side was a sheer drop-off into the abyss below. I swung my leg over and started climbing down the other side of the rubble. If I fell now and missed the path, I would enjoy a 200-foot drop straight down to the quarry floor. No wonder they blocked this trail. Breathing a sigh of relief, my boots finally hit solid ground. I used the high vantage point to check for any signs of Rusty, but all I could see was the steep trail I was standing on, slowly descending down the quarry wall and into the shadows of the deepest pit. There were no clearings that I could see, just dense, unnatural darkness. So I started down. I had to watch my step, because every once in a while, a chunk of the trail had fallen away, and there would be a 2-foot section of open air. But about halfway down, I began to notice a slight haze along the base of the quarry. The closer I got to the quarry floor, the more the light mist turned into a heavy, oppressive fog. It was cool and damp at the bottom of the trail. The temperature must have dropped 10 or 15 degrees. I called out for Rusty, but the sound of my voice seemed to fade in the mist, so I blew my emergency whistle. Rusty would hear that from a long way off. I listened for any sign of him but heard nothing. Looking down, I noticed paw prints in the damp ground, heading into the deepest, darkest part of the quarry, so I followed. 30 minutes later, I lost Rusty's trail. I decided to walk in a large circle and try to look for any paw prints. I marked my starting point with a piece of reflective tape tied to a massive, ancient drilling rig. After 45 minutes of walking through the dense fog, I realized I was well and truly lost. It was hard to see 10 feet in front of me through the heavy fog, and I started to get the feeling that something was watching me. Shaking off the paranoia, I blew my whistle again to see if Rusty could find me. The sound might also scare off any coyotes. Then I sat down on a fallen I-beam for a drink. I was putting the canteen away when a figure stepped out from the swirling mist. He was young, maybe in his 20s, gaunt, in tattered work clothes, with an old hard hat slung over his shoulder. Startled, I said, "Hey, I am looking for my dog. Are you okay?" Without saying a word, he put his hand up to cover his mouth, signaling for me to keep quiet, and pointed into the thickest part of the fog. I felt the vibration through the soles of my boots. It was a ways off, but every 4 or 5 seconds, I could feel the ground shake slightly. Then I heard it, a soft, metallic clank thump. The sound would repeat every few seconds. It was like something huge was moving through the quarry, and it was getting closer. I looked over to the guy and saw that he had plastered himself behind a large rusted transformer, and that is when I heard the scraping. It was so loud I actually fell back onto the ground, and the sound was coming from directly above the fog line. This thing, whatever it was, seemed close now. I stayed low. The ground shook with each step. There was a section of discarded rebar next to me, and I saw it vibrate violently, then slowly bend. It was the next blast of that grinding metallic shriek that got me moving. It was so loud that I could feel my eardrums ringing. It sounded like it was almost on top of me. I scrambled towards the nearest pile of broken concrete and held onto it, my face pressed into the rough surface. Then there was silence. Everything was completely still. I did not move. I did not even breathe. And then it was moving again, moving away from us. I thought about Rusty, how he was so afraid of loud noises. He must be as far away from here as possible. I hoped he was okay. I looked over to where the guy had been hiding, but he was gone, legs shaking. I slid down to the ground and tried to catch my breath. It was then that Rusty's head poked through the swirling mist. "Rusty? Man, am I glad to see you." I patted my leg for him to come, but he did not move. "It is okay, boy. Come on, let us get out of here." But Rusty stayed where he was, whining softly. He looked back into the mist, then took a small step towards me, and something came with him, out of the fog. It was a young boy, maybe 7 years old, with tangled dusty hair. He was wearing an old faded t-shirt with a cartoon miner on it, and he was clutching Rusty's fur like it was the only solid thing in a shifting world. I could see the boy was terrified, so I spoke as quietly as I could. "Hey there, I see you have met Rusty. He is a good dog." The boy looked down at Rusty and then back up at me. "What do you say? The three of us find our way out of here." He stood there motionless for a full minute, then gave a slight nod. "Okay, good. You hold on to Rusty so he does not get lost. Can you take my hand?" I stood where I was and held my hand out toward him. After a moment, he slowly came toward me and took it. Grabbing my backpack, I pulled out a fresh water bottle and offered it to the boy. "I bet you are thirsty. Would you like some water?" But he just stood there, staring at me. "Okay, not right now. We will try again later." Then I looked down at Rusty and said, "Let us go home, boy." He sniffed at the air and then headed into the quarry. We followed close behind. Twice more we heard something huge moving through the rocks, once from a distance and once too close for comfort. We stayed silent and unmoving until the danger passed. We walked for hours. I was sure we would never find our way out. We eventually decided to sit down to rest, and I was once again trying to get the boy to take some water. Suddenly Rusty jumped to his feet, his head tilted to the side like he was listening to something in the distance. Then he took off straight into the fog. I grabbed the boy's hand, and we ran after him. Whenever Rusty got too far ahead, he would stop and wait for us. He would keep barking until we caught up. Then he would take off running again. When I saw the reflective tape tied around the ancient drilling rig I had used for a marker, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. It was only a little farther until we reached the path that led up and out of the deepest pit. As we came out of the mist, I could not believe my eyes. "Tiber," I mumbled. There was old man Tiber with a relieved look on his face. He had a length of thick rope tied around his waist. "Jim, thank God. Come on," he said. "Hurry." I picked up the boy, and we made our way back up the path carved out of the quarry face. As we climbed, I told Tiber about the guy I saw in the pit. He said, "He will have to find his own way out. We are not going back there. The only reason you three got out is because Rusty heard my emergency whistle." When we got to the top, Tiber took off the rope and tied it around the boy's waist, then told him to climb over the fallen rock and machinery slowly and carefully. We climbed up right behind him. I carried Rusty under one arm. When we made it to solid ground on the other side, we stopped to catch our breath. All of a sudden, I was incredibly thirsty. I pulled out the water bottles, gave one to the boy, and we both drank until the bottles were empty. "Easy, easy there. You do not want to make yourselves sick. A little at a time," Tiber said, taking a sip from his canteen. "Jim, I see you and Rusty have a new traveling companion. Now who have we here?" Tiber asked. I just shook my head. He has not said a word, I replied. That is okay. Let us all get back to the main office, and we will figure things out from there, Tiber replied with a smile. Rusty took the lead with the boy following close behind. Tiber, I said quietly, if you have got your phone with you, call for an ambulance now, 'cause it will take them over an hour to reach us. Tiber shook his head. No calls. He pointed towards the boy. I will explain later. I looked over at him, wondering what was going on, but I trusted Tiber. He is a good man. So I just nodded and kept walking. By the time we got back to the main office, the sun was setting. We were all exhausted. The boy refused to go more than 3 feet away from Rusty, so we made a small fire in the sheltered area by the office. We cooked up some food and set up a small cot for him and Rusty to sleep on. Tiber and I sat by the fire and had a couple of cold sodas. When we were sure the boy was sound asleep, I turned to him and asked, "So, what in the world is going on?" "He needs to get checked out by a doctor, and his family needs to be informed now." "How long do you think you have been gone?" Tiber asked. "What does that have to do with anything?" I replied. "Just answer the question," he said. I sighed. "Okay, I guess I was gone for maybe 8 or 9 hours. Tiber shook his head. "You were gone for 2 days. "That is not funny, Tiber." "I am not laughing," he said. "When you did not report in for 1 day after the rockfall, Kenny assumed that the communication lines were down again, like they were last month, and with all the emergency calls and cleanup, we had our hands full for the last few days. But when I heard Kenny mention that you had not called in, I dropped everything and came right over, because I knew exactly where you were." "How?" I started, but Tiber cut me off. "No, let me finish," he said. "There is something wrong with that quarry, Jim. I do not know exactly how to explain it, but let us just say it goes to another place. Not always, but sometimes it does. When I first started here as a young foreman, about 8 months in, a couple of prospectors disappeared, father and son. They were heading down into the deepest part of the quarry to search for minerals. They never came back. There was a big search. It went on for over 2 weeks. Never found anything. Not a pickaxe or a map or a boot. Nothing. Like they just vanished clean off the earth. About a year later, a 9-year-old boy goes missing about 50 miles from here, near an old ghost town. His name was Thomas Miller, if I remember correctly. Anyways, this search party was massive. Always is, when a child goes missing. There must have been 300 people out looking for him. They found nothing. 7 weeks later, 2 urban explorers were hiking through our quarry, and they found him, huddled up against a rusted piece of machinery. Brought him back, called his parents. He was okay, but remember, he got lost 50 miles away. So how did he end up here, in our quarry? Our local mayor held a little celebration to thank the 2 explorers and present them with an award. Thomas and his family came down to attend. There was food and drink. Everyone was happy. Just for a moment, I happened to catch Thomas sitting by himself at a picnic table. So I sat down and asked him what really happened. He said that his family was exploring an old mine shaft, and his little sister was complaining about going too deep. His parents stopped to reassure her, and while they were stopped, Thomas kept walking. He said he was tired of listening to his sister whine. He went around a bend in the shaft, and off the side of the tunnel, about 40 feet in, was an old wooden minecart. A full-sized minecart, with a flickering lantern and a strange hum coming from it. He said he stepped off the path, walked over to it, and held out his hand. Thomas said he just wanted to touch it, to see if it was real. And as soon as his hand touched the cart, he was standing in a different quarry, and everything was covered in a thick metallic fog. There were 4 more disappearances over the next 6 years, and that is when I decided to block off the trails that led to the deepest parts of the quarry. "You did that?" I asked. "You made the rock fall?" "Yes, and I do not regret it, because the disappearances fell off after that," Tiber continued. "I blocked off every entrance, and then I hid the trails leading to the deepest pits as best I could. Things were pretty quiet here for a long time, but 5 years ago, a little girl went missing. Her name was Emily Chen. She was 7 years old at the time, and again a massive search. Locals, reporters, even some people from out of state came to help. We looked everywhere, brought in search dogs too, and you better believe I searched those hidden trails, even climbed up the rock falls to look. There was nothing there. 6 days later, I found her sitting at the base of that same rock fall we climbed over today. I had already looked there 3 times, so I checked her for broken bones, and she looked okay, except for some scrapes and scratches. I picked her up and carried her back to the search party, and, while it is just me and Emily, I asked her what happened. She says she was playing hide and seek with her brother, and she was hiding behind a large rock formation. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, her brother was gone, and she was in a strange, dusty place, and she could not see very far, because there was a weird haze everywhere, like a sandstorm. She got scared and started crying. Then she heard a big grinding noise, kind of like an excavator. It made her ears hurt. The ground started shaking. Then she says, a giant metal hand picked her up and carried her over the quarry walls. She said it was like flying. Emily said she could see a long way. Then the giant set her down on top of a big pile of broken rock, and she climbed down and sat at the bottom. And after a while, I came and found her. When I brought her back to her parents, they rushed her to the hospital. The doctor said the only thing wrong with Emily, other than some cuts and scratches, was a ruptured eardrum. The doctor said that could happen from being close to a loud blast of noise. I think Tiber noticed that I went pale after that last story. He stopped to open another soda. I asked him the only question I could think of. But why do you not want to take the boy to the hospital to get checked out? We have to find out who he is. I know who he is, Tiber said quietly. His name is Alex Petrov. He is 6 years old, and he went missing over 15 years ago. How? I started again, but Tiber interrupted me. You were gone for 2 days. Time is different over there. How could you possibly know it is him? I said. I looked for that boy for weeks. I guess I never really stopped looking for him. I memorized his picture, and I recognized the cartoon miner t-shirt he was wearing when he got lost. It is faded now, but it is the same shirt, and I remember his mother, Elena. Long after they called off the search, she was up here searching side by side with me. Every weekend and every day off, she was out in these rocks, looking for Alex. She said she knew he was still alive. She knew it. But 15 years, I stammered. How could he survive? What did he do for food and water? And how did he keep away from the things that live over there? I do not know, Tiber said. But at first light, I am going back to base. I will find contact info for his parents. They will have kept it current. Parents of missing children always keep their contact information current. No matter how much time passes, I am going to have them get out here as fast as possible. I guarantee, if they are still breathing, they will be here by tomorrow night. In the meantime, he stays here with you. And before you start to argue with me, let me say this. That little boy has been through more than we could ever imagine. If we take him in, there will have to be a report. The press will show up, and eventually, they will figure out his story does not make sense. They will be all over him and his parents for months. It will be a challenging situation. And if you need another reason, take a look at him sleeping with Rusty. I think he feels safe for the first time in a long, long time. Do you want to take him away from Rusty and leave him at the hospital with a bunch of strangers? Let me answer that for you. No, you do not. It is not right. Let him stay with Rusty until his parents get here. Then they can decide what to do. I thought for a moment about what happened to me, and about what people would say if I told them what happened to me. They would think I was crazy. Then I thought about Alex. Tiber was right to keep things quiet. Okay, I said. Alex will stay here with me and Rusty until you come back with his parents. I fell asleep in the chair by the fire, and by the time I woke up, Tiber was already gone. He had left a note under a rock by my chair. I will be back by tonight, was all it said. I spent the day watching Alex play with Rusty in the sheltered area, and true to his word, by 5 that evening, Tiber called to say he was waiting at the airport to pick up Alex's mother, Elena Petrov. She was flying in alone because her husband was recovering from a serious injury and was too weak to travel. When I heard the truck pull up 2 hours later, I waited at the head of the dirt path from the parking area. A few minutes later, they came walking up. As soon as I saw Elena, I knew it was Alex's mother. I could see the resemblance in her face. She was visibly nervous as she asked, "Where is he?" I pointed to the sheltered area. Alex was sitting with Rusty, carefully drawing patterns in the dust with a small rock. Elena gasped and clutched at her heart. "Oh my God, can this be real?" she whispered. She walked slowly towards the boy. "Alex," she whispered. It sounded like a prayer. Alex stood looking at the woman for what felt like an eternity. Then he ran, throwing his arms around his mother, his little hands still clutching the dusty rock. Then Elena was full on weeping, still holding tight to Alex. I had tears in my eyes, and I looked over to see that Tiber did too. It was one of the best moments of my life. I will never forget it. After things calmed down, we all talked for a while. Elena thanked us over and over, saying she could never repay us for what we had done. Alex still had not spoken, but he held tight to his mom. Tiber drove mother and son to the airport. Elena wanted to bring Alex back home to see his father as soon as possible. She said that seeing his son would be the best medicine he could ever have. After they were gone, I sat by the fire, thinking about everything that had happened. Rusty was sound asleep at my feet. Weeks went by, and things settled back down. Then I got a call from Tiber, asking if I wanted to meet for dinner in town. We met at the local diner. They had good burgers, and there was a patio out back that allowed dogs. After the waitress took our order, Tiber said, "I got a letter today from Elena Petrov. She said her husband's recovery is going incredibly well. She wished we could have seen the look on his face when he saw Alex. It was like a huge weight he had been carrying for 15 years had been lifted from him. She also said Alex is coming out of his shell. He is talking again, and Elena said she took my advice about keeping things quiet. She just wanted her family back. In fact, she is homeschooling Alex right now because she cannot bear to be apart from him. A few weeks ago, they took Alex to the local animal shelter and let him pick out a puppy. He named it Rusty, and the puppy sleeps with him every night. Elena also said that Alex's birthday is next week, and she and her husband would be honored if we would come celebrate with them, because they have a lot to celebrate right now." Tiber looked at me and asked, "So what do you think, you two up for a road trip?" "Always," I replied, grinning. Rusty looked up at the words road trip and woofed his agreement. After dinner, we walked out to the parking lot. Tiber got in his truck, waved, and pulled out onto the road. I stood there for a minute looking down at Rusty. "There was a family," I said, "with a giant hole right through the heart of it. And you patched it up, Rusty. You did this." He stared up at me, head tilted to the side. I gave him a scratch behind the ear and said, "Job well done, boy. Let us go home."